We've seen some amazing things, but that, my friends, is something we've never seen.
Brandon Cruz Month's Advice.
Brandon Cruz Month's Advice.
Brandon Month's Advice.
Brandon Cruz Month's Advice. You just locked yourself into the playoffs.
Nice.
Got it.
Talk with old Brandon Cruz Month's Advice.
Completely speechless, to say the least.
Man, I am honestly so baffled by that decision. Brandon Cruz Month's Advice. It's Brandon Month's Advice.
Green flag in the air. Brandon Cruz Month's Advice to the front.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are you doing? This is the Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast, brought to you in association with Burnout Avenue, your motorsports headquarters. Yet again, Zach and Josh over there do a fantastic job every Monday following the Cup Series race, doing a comprehensive race review and discussion following stories that happen in the race and things that will lead into next week. So please check them out. They deserve it. Follow them on Podbean and subscribe to them on iTunes for further information. Check out Burnout Avenue, their website, and their Twitter handle for just a lot of discussions and things related to racing. If you guys just want to have a good discussion there, feel free to ask them stuff, and feel free to answer any questions that they usually ask. They usually ask them during the races leading up to the weekend and all that type of stuff. So let's get into it. This is the STP Cup Series race at Martinsville. The stages, first two are 130 laps, third one is 240 laps, and entering this race, it's a short track, so we obviously know that leading laps is important, so you're going to want to have the dominator or dominators who end up leading the vast majority of the laps. I honestly believe that you'll have someone probably lead 300 laps in this race, probably more. I'm not sure if that's going to be Logano or not. This year it's been a bit weird with just burped there. With leaders not winning the races and not being as dominant as they have been in years past, but I don't believe that's going to be the case here at Martinsville, only because Logano is a good driver in general. He has the speed, and not just because he started on the pole, but he's shown speed throughout both practices and things of that nature. But let me get into this. I don't believe that the package is going to really do a darn thing. I mean, these cars are going, 60 miles in the center of the corner? Yeah, sure, they might have more downforce on the straightaway, but it's not going to change short track racing at all, whether you're on a dirt track or a small asphalt track like Bowman Gray Stadium or something like that. It's still short track racing, so I'm not too worried about how the setup is going to be or anything on that, or at least the package is going to be. I still think it's just going to be just short track racing and a good race in general. I think this will probably be one of the better ones this season. I said that about Auto Club, and Auto Club wasn't bad. There was more passing. I enjoyed Auto Club. I didn't think it was terrible or anything like that. So I know LaJoy had his brakes fail, and a lot of people were talking about that. Listen, I'm not even worried about that. If brakes fail, they end up failing. If someone wheel hops in a corner, they end up wheel hopping. I'm not even gonna worry about that. That's ridiculous. If you're worried about that, you're worse than a race car driver worried about wrecking. Like, you can't think about that stuff when you get into this. You just have to go in with it. So I had a couple favorites entering the weekend before practice even started. That was Logano, Denny Hamlin, Mark Truex Jr., and Kyle Busch. A lot of people think that Truex is just dominant on miles and a half, but he's actually been showing pretty good speed at Martinsville in general the past couple races here. So I think I thought going in that a lot of people would underestimate Truex, and I'm not really sure how they're going to fall. I'm recording this quite late, actually, just because qualifying recording late always screws me up, and I take freaking forever to get all my data and lineups made. I usually make them the night before. I go over everything. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 6 pages of stuff just written down in this notepad, and I make all my lineups handmade. I write all my data down handmade. I'm just better like that when I talk about it. So what was I saying? So guys that I liked after both practices, especially after final practice. First practice didn't really care. A lot of guys are there's only 2 practices, and a lot of people are going to be running Q trim in the first practice and working on their car setup in the second practice. So guys that I liked after second practice that stood out to me was Truex, Harvick, Logano, Hamlin, Blaney, and Larson. Those are the main guys that stood out. Daniel Suarez also stands out to me because he did a long run, which was over 20 laps, and he ends up carrying long run speed in not too bad. Let me get out of this. In not too bad like times. Like for example, where are you at? 41. Okay, so in his 20 consecutive lap averages, I don't know when he ran this in the practice, but Truex was the best at a 19.917, and Suarez was 7th fastest, which I'm not really concerned about what position he was wise, but he ran a 22nd lap .23. I mean that's 1/10 off of Truex, so in 20 laps. So do what you will about that. I'm not really sure on how I feel about Suarez, just because I usually end up playing Suarez, and he usually never does anything for me. This might be the one week that I hop on him. I didn't write about him in the article that I have on the bottom, and I usually I mention that in the beginning. I totally forgot. They posted an article again on Burnout Avenue, so thank you guys very much for letting me provide you with an article there. Please check it out, guys. I'm going to mention a lot of the things that I put in that article, but you can guys check it out before I get there. Go read it right fast in the description of the video. I didn't put Suarez in there because I don't feel like he's safe enough. I mean, none of my picks are safe in there for sure, but Suarez is just a bit worrisome. I'm not too keen on using Suarez this week. Anyway, so that's after the practices. And then qualifying happened. So let me just go over the chalk qualifying. There's a crap load of names in here. I think I got like 11 guys written down that I think will be quote-unquote highly owned. So we got LaJoie, Dillon, Hemrick, Stenhouse, Newman, Kurt Busch, Jones, Blaney, Bowman, and Kyle Busch. Going to the 8 and the 3 car, I'm not sure if Dillon is going to be higher owned or if Hemrick is going to be higher owned. I feel like Hemrick will be higher on. I feel like Hemrick's going to be higher owned just because of his price. He's cheaper than Dillon, and he's not that bad. Like, let's be honest, Hemrick's going to finish like 18th or something. And then I feel Blaine is going to be highly owned because there's so much attention on him about him getting sideways out of 4 in qualifying. I think that just there's going to be something in people's mind where it's like, oh well, Blaney had a fast car. He just messed up. He got sideways out of 4. He certainly wasn't going to get the pole, and he did in the second round. Blaney does not have that fast of a car to draw that much ownership, but I think he's going to be higher owned. I'm terrible at predicting ownership. Here, every time I've tried, I've been like 10% off on each one, and that's like just no bueno. That's no good at all. But I feel like Blaney should at least be at like 30% owned. We'll see how close I am tomorrow, but I think I'll be at 30% owned. So let's go over where everyone's starting right fast. I'll get back to the chalk in a second because I'm going to go through the starting positions, and then at the when I'm done with going through the starting positions, I'm going to focus on pricing and ownership. I know I just said I don't predict ownership that well, but what I can predict is how people pick based on how much money they have left, and this is usually how I'm able to find the people that I can get who are low owned and that I like. So we're going to go over starting positions first, and then I'll get to lineup creation and all that type of stuff for tomorrow. So going over qualifying, Cody Ware and LaJoie didn't run a time. LaJoie tore up his car. I feel like a lot of people are going to go to LaJoie because he's cheap. Let me just look at his price right fast. I always forget to do this. LaJoie is only $5,400, and he's starting second to last. I feel like a lot of people are just going to go on him just because he didn't run a lap, and it's like, well, he's on a backup car, but he's like given he's going to be 35th. He can't lose a whole bunch of positions. Like I said in the article written, staying on the lead lap is absolutely vital in this race. I don't think I'm going to be worried about any punts. I'm going to do my best to not play anyone under at least $6,000 this weekend. I'm going to try my hardest to stay away from any of those guys. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm going to try and stay away from those quote-unquote punts. And then, so you got DJ Kennington. I'm not using him. Not using Jeb Burton. I have no interest in that. Matt Tiff. I would like Matt Tiff if he was on a different racetrack, but I'm looking for people who stay on the lead lap. I expect Tiff to at least finish 29th, but I think he'll be at least like eight laps down by the time this race ends, maybe probably even more at that rate, because we'll see how it goes. And then you go to Chastain. I feel like Chastain is going to be the highest owned out of the 31st to 36 starting cars. That's all I have there. Dillon and Hemrick's going to chew massive chalk. Cass will probably won't have anyone owning him, but I don't believe he'll finish higher than where he started. Bubba Wallace, I don't believe Bubba will finish any higher than 25th. Reagan, yet again, in the same thing. Like between Castle, Bubba, and Reagan, and McDowell, throw McDowell and Ty Dillon in there. I don't expect those guys to really move past where they're starting. Stenhouse offers a bit of interesting play because he was 25th fastest in 10-run averages, and he's starting 25th, and I don't believe he'll finish that bad. He's got to finish at least 21st or something. I have no interest in McDowell or Ty Dillon. Matt DiBenedetto is starting 22nd, just not high enough for me to care to use him. And, man, is it just me, or is it harder to find people that you actually like and that you expect to, like, move up positions back here? Like, I don't know if it's just because there's 36 cars and that we've had low fields this year or what, but I feel like these guys just don't move up at all unless you just do like some stupid break and finish up high. Like I think Tiff did that last a couple weeks back or something like that. Anyway, no interest in Matt DiBenedetto. I like Ryan Newman a lot. Just because he's hard as hell to pass, and that type of characteristic is great here. And he's not a stupid guy. He usually doesn't get into too many accidents on these short tracks, other than that 2011 race where he punted like the inside lane and just wrecked like Gordon Johnson Jr. and all those guys. I like Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch is interesting. I don't know how expensive he'll be in relation to other guys because he's 10,200 on DraftKings, and that's just based on because he's been starting pretty bad and finishing really, really well. I think he's the only driver with top 10s in each race other than the 500. And he's doing really good. I like Kurt Busch. He's just carrying a $10,000 price tag, $10,200 price tag. So we'll have to see how these lineups shake out to see if we can fit him in there. But I really do like Kurt Busch here. Same with Eric Jones and Blaney. Kurt Busch, Jones, Blaney, and Bowman are guys that I'm interested in. As I said before, when I went over who was qualifying, these guys are going to be where the ownership is. And the real question is, what combination of these guys are going to be low owned? Obviously, Kurt Busch is going to be a favorite pick from people, but like say for example if you put Kurt Busch and Blaney together, Kurt Busch is 10,200 and then Blaney is 9,000. That's a lot of money for two guys that are obviously going to finish way ahead of them, but you need like a Joey Logano, you need like Truex and all those guys. So we'll just I'll have to see where other people are going, and I'll have to read on where other guys are going. Like for example, like I know DFS Tavern just uploaded his video when I was on YouTube like a minute before I started recording this. I haven't watched his yet, but I usually watch DFS Tavern, Rubbins Racing. I usually check out what DFS Army is saying, what Osmo is saying, what Roto Grinders are saying, and then some other guys on Reddit. I don't even post on Reddit anymore. That community's cancer. in general, I love Reddit, but man, I can't get anything. I can't get no love in that DFS community there. But I do like to see where other people go. So I'll see what the vast majority of people are wanting to do with Busch and Blaney to see how much I will own of them. Not too interested in Priest. I know he comes from this type of racing, but not too big into him. Not too big into Menard. I hate to say that. I feel like Menard is right where he's going to finish. But there's just other guys that I like more. Kyle Busch, I'm totally going to own. It's Kyle Busch, man. He's the hottest thing right now in NASCAR. Not just based on people talking about him, but he's a kick-ass racer. And there's no way he doesn't finish in the top 5. Let me get a drink right fast, sorry. Chris Buescher. This is an interesting situation. Chris Buescher is in a price range that, let me find where he's at. He is 6,500, and I'm going to get into prices that are left over when people make lineups in just a few minutes. But Chris Buescher is at a price where he's really cheap, but there's too many guys around him around the same price and cheaper than him and more expensive than him that just have a better chance at place differential points. And for that reason alone, I think Chris Buescher is going to be like at 17, maybe 15% owned. I feel like no one is going to use Chris Buescher. Why would you use Chris Buescher in this situation? He's not really showing that speed, and I think he'll finish. I don't think he'll finish better than where he starts. I think Buescher's going to finish 16th, but I think the ownership on him is just too tempting to pass on him for 6,500. For example, he has Hemrick right beside him, DiBenedetto, Ty Dillon, McDowell, Newman, Menard, Stenhouse, Dillon around him, and I feel like no one's going to be owning Chris Buescher. So I personally like Chris Buescher just as an ownership GPP play. So we'll see how bad that screws me over. Then you got Jimmy Johnson, who's great at this track, just not in recent history. And why I do say Jimmy Johnson's not washed up, I don't see any room in my lineups for him. I like Clinton Boyer, I like Suarez, like I said, and I like Martin Truex Jr. because Truex Jr. is showing incredible long run speed. And this race is going to go green. You need long run speed, and Truex makes that work. You just have to try and fit him in because Truex is the third most expensive at $11,900, and he's not going to be leading laps. So if you pick Truex, you're going to need the person who leads the most amount of laps, because I don't expect Truex to lead laps at least until lap 150 or something, or at least till after the first stage. So we'll have to see who you think's going to lead there. And then I like Chase Elliott based on track history, and I don't think a lot of people are going to be owning him because he falls in the category where he's just too expensive for a lot of people to fit him in the lineups. Then you got Boyer, Johnson, Jones, Suarez, and Ryan Blaney, and Alex Bowman around him in price range, so I don't think a lot of people are going to own Elliott. I wrote about him in my article. Kyle Larson also falls into this category to where he's just been so bad. If you're looking at track history and you think that Larson's good on short tracks just because of his dirt track days, he doesn't show a lot of speed here traditionally. But that's the reason I like him. Hopefully no one will pick him. I'm not sure how many lineups I have with Larson in it, but that'll certainly be interesting. I have no interest in I have no interest in Byron. There's better guys out there for the money. I like Hamlin entering this week, and I like him based on speed. He's starting 5th. I think he'll easily finish top 5. And same can be said about Harvick and Keselowski. Almirola, I just feel like he's going to be passed. He has a fast car. He's showing all right speeds, but man, I just think there's better guys out there. I really do. Almirola is 5th fastest in 10-lap averages in third practice, or in final practice, but I think Logano's going to be leading the laps, and there's just nothing out there for Almirola, and if he gets passed, you're already screwed there. So that's what I'm thinking about that. So let me focus on to what I've been really looking at when I make my own personal lineups, and something that I really haven't talked about a whole lot, but it's who and how, or it's going to be the drivers that I think are going to be picked first and how people are going to look at it. So for example, I have 5 lineups written down right here that are 4 drivers that I expect people to start their lineup with, quote unquote. So the one is a bit more contrarian, but like for example, if you start your lineup with Kyle Busch, Daniel Hemrick, Ryan Blaney, and Kurt Busch, you have $5,600 left per driver for the last 2 remaining. If you start with Logano, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, and Daniel Hemrick, you have $5,900 remaining for the last 2, or $5,900 average, remaining for the last 2 drivers. Obviously, you can pick a cheap guy and go up higher or whatnot, but this is just to show you what people are going to look at, the amount of money that people are going to have left per driver and what they're going to probably be thinking. And then you get a little bit more expensive if you go Logano, Blaney, Jones, and Stenhouse. You have $7,350 left per driver, and then so let's say if you have 56, 5,900, and 7,300. If you go with 5,600 per driver, you're going to be looking at like McDowell, Wallace, Reagan, Chastain, LaJoie, Tiff, Castle, and so on and so forth going down as your drivers that you were left to make a decision with. If you have 59, that opens the door up for you at least to have like DiBenedetto, Priest, Ty Dillon, and McDowell join that. Maybe Chris Buescher, depending on where you go. If you have $7,300 left, you automatically throw in like Stenhouse, Menard, Byron, Newman, Hemrick, Buescher, DeBenedetto, and then if you go cheap, you can probably get up to like Eric Jones, Clint Boyer, Daniel Suarez, maybe possibly Ryan Blaney at 9,000, depending on where you go. So that's how I usually end up picking who's going to be chalky, because I see how much money you're going to have, like how much remaining salary you have to create your lineups. If you look at a popular combination of two drivers that I think people might go to, like Logano and Truex, if you choose those two guys first when you make your lineup, you have $6,700 remaining average per driver. Now, say if you throw Hemrick and Blaney onto that same lineup, so you have Logano, Truex, Hemrick, and Blaney, that leaves you $5,600 remaining. And that is equivalent to the first lineup that I said, to where if you had Kyle Busch, Hemrick, Blaney, and Kurt Busch together. So these are two different ways you can start your lineup to have the same quote-unquote average salary remaining. So you could have like Kyle Busch, Hemrick, Blaney, and Kurt Busch. Then you'll have the same as Logano, Truex, Hemrick, and Blaney. So I know I'm going kind of fast. I just keep throwing names out there, but that's how I look at it. Like what four guys are most people going to start their lineup with, and where they're going to go from there. Like how much money do you have left, and how are you going to use that to think about how to be different, what drivers you go to, things of that nature. So looking at it this way, I think anyone over $8,400 will be quote-unquote like low-owned. Like the vast majority of money is not going to be spent there. The vast majority of money is going to be spent anywhere from $7,400 to $6,600 on the DraftKings players, like the drivers who are priced $7,400 to $6,600. I think that's where the vast majority of the ownership is going to lie, and that is where the vast majority of people are going to go, consciously or not. They're going to end up going with a driver somewhere in that price range. And I imagine anywhere from $7,400 to $5,400 left is what most people on DraftKings will have on average for the last two drivers. So with that logic, you have anywhere from like Bowman, Dillon, Stenhouse, Menard, Newman, Hemrick, McDowell, LaJoie. Like those guys are going to be the chalk there. If you end up saving money, then people are going to be jumping up to Blaney, maybe Clint Boyer, maybe Johnson, Jones, Elliott, maybe even Kurt Busch at 10,000 if you could maybe fit him in there. We'll have to see how that goes. But I mean, I know I really haven't discussed this a whole lot, and it looks better on paper than explaining it. But that's how I look at how I think the chalk is going to be played out and how much money people are going to be doing. For example, like another lineup I made, or just a starting lineup I made together, was Logano, Boyer, Truex, and Bubba Wallace, and that leaves you $6,300 per driver. And for some reason, when most people see, oh, I have this much remaining per driver, you either do one of two things. Say if you have $6,700 remaining, you'll be like, oh, Newman's at $6,800 and Hemrick's at $6,600. You can click both those guys. Or you can be like, oh, well, Hemrick is at 67 or 66, but if I want to be different, I can pick like Matt DiBenedetto for $6,300. People mainly just end up going to people right at the number that says like average player remaining. Most people don't go down to like drastically save money, like with a punt or something. So let's just say, for example, if you had $6,600 left with, let me just put this line together right fast. Sorry. And then, wait a minute. Oh, I didn't click it. Okay, sorry. It's okay. So say, for example, if I put Logano, Truex, Hemrick, and Blaney in a lineup, that leaves me with $5,600 left. If you let's just say, for example, you draft Matt Tiff for $5,300. If my mouse will click, that leaves you $5,900 for your last guy. So then you're stuck with like McDowell, Wallace, Reagan, Chastain, and all those guys. Say if you don't like that, you can punt farther down. You could be like, oh, screw it, I'm picking DJ Kennington for $5,000. That leaves you $6,200 to choose someone. Now you have Ryan Preece in there starting 16th. He doesn't look very appealing. compared to him, Ty Dillon, McDowell, and Wallace still look appealing. So you don't need to like go that far down to get Kennington if you're just going to be stuck with the same guys. Same thing there. Like if you like punt even farther down, go to Jeb Burton, then you have 6,300. That gives you Matt DiBenedetto. Is he really worth of the punt of Jeb Burton? I don't know. I can't really tell you that. Anyway, so that's how I usually play with like how much money I have left when I'm making my lineups. I usually try and get to a point where I believe a lot of people will be at, and then seeing how that money makes people like choose certain drivers just based on how much they have, and then I go back, remake my lineup to try to be or to try and avoid that situation, and just pick different guys. I have no idea if that made any sense. Please let me know what you think about this part of the video. If you'd like to know more of it, if you'd like diagrams or something, if you would like me to post pictures of what I'm working on, because I've done that before in previous videos, just please let me know. I know I'm 25 minutes into this, and you're going to probably be listening to this in the morning right before the race and all that. So thank you guys so much for listening. Check out my Twitter at BrandonCruzDFS. Please subscribe. Please like. I think we just reached over like 350 subscribers. Not really sure. I know I just reached about 100 followers on Twitter, so that's really cool to see that this is slowly growing, so I appreciate that. If you would like to donate and help me keep doing this, show me a reason to keep posting these videos other than just like, oh, thanks for helping, thanks for that, you give a great job. I like hearing that too, but man, I like money. That's why I do this. No, but anyway, my PayPal's in the description if you would like to donate. I usually end up working Sunday nights. I close for the business that I work for, so I usually don't end up watching like the last 100 laps of the race anyway. I usually save that for when I get home Sunday or whatever. But before the race, I will be up early tomorrow answering questions on Twitter, answering questions here on YouTube. Feel free to ask me anything, and I will try and give you my best guess and advice of what you would do or what you should do. And be sure to check out my article in the description for Burnout Avenue, my GPP punts and pivots. So check that out. It goes into a little bit more detail than just what I said in this video. But thank you guys so much for listening, and don't get married to your money. I will talk to you guys